Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedCommsNetworking.com. So information, resources, activities for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses across the globe. You'll find there's lots going on. You'll find lots of content. We do a lot of webinars. We've generated a lot of videos over at NetworkPharma TV. You'll find hundreds now, videos based on webinars like this, but also lots of other content. And for those of you who are interested in getting into the business, firstmedcommsjob.com provides lots of information about starting your career. I'll give a shout out today. It's the 12th of June, 2024, and it's MedComms Day. So we're having a bit of fun today. If you follow hashtag MedComms, you'll see what's going on. Today, I'm absolutely delighted that I've got three founding directors, if I can call you that, and owners of new businesses in MedComms. And we're going to talk about and around the idea that we're in a new era of MedComms. And I'd like to get some insights into how you guys are seeing the marketplace. But also, let's hear a little bit about your stories in terms of setting up these new businesses. So it's just a panel session today. The audience is here from all over the world. It's good to see. Please, audience, bring in your questions via the two text boxes, and we'll just have this conversation for 45 minutes or so. We're going to start with introductions. Elena, I'm going to ask you to start. Tell us who you are, where you are, and paint a little bit of a picture of your position at the moment.
Sure. So happy MedComms Day, everybody. My name's Elena Mills. I'm the Managing Director of the Salve Medical Communications. We are a medical affairs specialist consultancy, majority women-owned, and also a certified B Corporation. So we started 2 years ago, and we do the full range of medical affairs activities, but we tend to major on the strategy, so medical strategy. It's not just me, it's my co-founder, Liz Southey. So Liz is on the scientific services side, I'm on the client services side. And we have a sort of a specialist focus on women's health and health equity. So we'll probably come back to that. But yeah, my route into MedComms was actually as a medical writer, started as a medical writer and moved over to the client services side. So I'm very much jack of all trades, seen every part of the business.
What does the name come from, Elena?
Oh, you jumped in, James. That was my question. Come on, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Where does the name come from?
I'll be quiet.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But that was exactly what I was going to ask. And I'm going to ask each of you, because I find it fascinating. When you're setting up a new business, it's a long time since I've set up a new business, but I spent a lot of time worrying about my name. So, Elena, tell us, give us a little bit of a clue where your name came from.
Yeah, that was a tricky one. We did spend a long time on it. It's kind of key to your brand and your ethos. It was also the only one Liz and I could agree on. But it's so Salve is it's like a soothing balm for your problems. So that was one of our we want to solve tricky challenges for our clients. It's also in the kind of romance languages, it means hello or be well, so it's a bit of communication and health in one. So that's where that comes from.
And just remind me, Elena, I'm sorry, you might have said it, but if I missed it, sorry. But is it about 2.5 years ago you set up?
Yeah, so we're 2 and a bit years old now. Yes, so and absolutely flown by, as I know my fellow panelists will say, time goes very quickly.
Okay. But I also think it's interesting. I mean, when I look back, as I said, it's a long time ago, but I spent so long working out the name, and then quite quickly it's just the name. And it can be quite difficult to almost explain it to anybody thereafter. But at the time, you've really thought it through.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So let's keep going. So James, you're next. Tell us the same sort of idea. Who are you? Where are you? And I'm going to ask you where your name came from as well, so you can add that in.
Correct my answer. So I'm James Turnbull. We at Camino have been going for 1.5 years, started in January 2023. We launched as the omnichannel native MedComms agency. So we made a choice to put omnichannel right there at the top of what we do. There was a little bit of hesitation. We're like, is this, a buzzword? Is it going to be gone in 2-3 years? And ultimately decided that if that happens, we'll just change our branding and move on to the next thing. But right now, there was an opportunity for us to own omnichannel, especially in the med affairs space, especially with medical teams. Like, we can own that and say this is how it's done best. So that's our initial positioning. We've also fallen into doing a lot of AI work as well, as I'm sure we'll mention. The name Camino actually comes from a road in Spain. It's a number of roads, it's a pilgrimage. And you can take multiple routes on the Camino de Santiago. So it's kind of like an on-the-channel journey. You can take various ways and you all end up at the same place, and which happens to be the tomb of St. James. So it was fitting. It's where I'm dead is where we all go.
I love these stories. Okay. And just out of interest, without preempting some of the other discussion we'll have, you made it very clear you started as a native omni-channel agency a year, 18 months ago. Is that how you still describe yourself now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like,
so omni-channel,
as I said, I thought maybe it'd be gone, but it's, we were at MAPS recently talking about omni-channel, and it's the same challenges of people going, I don't really know what that means. I don't really know how to do it, but I'm being told to be more omni-channel. So yeah, there's still very much a need for the omni-channel approach that we're taking.
Okay, that's interesting. And you are, as you said, you do a lot, and you're talking a lot about AI and so on. So you haven't translated or changed into an AI native agency. You're not.
No,
I mean, omnichannel is still front and forward.
We're a MedComms agency, so like both of these things are just like nice wrappers around what we're doing is doing medical writing and content and all the standard MedComms things. So it's just a nice furry glow around it.
Okay. But the positioning is interesting. We'll come back to this. And it's one of the most interesting things I think about this little chat might just be coming back to that point. Let's not preempt it. Let's come back to it. AC, come on. Same question to you. You're the newest kid on the block, aren't you?
Yeah. So Anne Clare or AC. So I've been in MedComms for about 24 years. So worked at 2 major network agencies before deciding last year that we'd actually set up our own agency, which was a massive decision, obviously, but we're very lucky with the partners that we went in. So it was Dawn, Lobban and myself who worked together for a long time, and we decided to found Amica. So Amica means female friend. So that was hugely important to us, and actually, you know, having run agencies, teams, knowing that culture is a massive part of what creates brilliance. So Amica and the values of friendship were fundamental to what we were about. But in terms of the agency itself, we wanted to bring together medical and patient engagement and strategy. So having a lot of experience in building medical affairs, medical strategy, medical communications teams and agencies, and then also in a previous life, and actually in both previous companies, having set up patient teams, really wanting to bring the patient engagement piece in, and rather than it being a team that parachutes in to support teams, you know, within the network, actually having that fundamental to everything that we do, so that the team itself is capable of delivering excellence in both medical and patient engagement. So that was the driver. So Dawn has done a huge amount within patient engagement, you know, alongside many others. And Joe Coles, who's our other partner, is also has done a lot of work within medical affairs, working with MAPS, as James was just referring to as well. So yeah, so that's the and with David Thompson, who also joined as well. We've got a lot of experience, and but we're also friends as well. That was the starting point.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm really pleased that came out. The stories behind the company names. It's really just nice, and it just really talks to your cultures and your approaches and all those sorts of things. But let's start here. Okay, so I've been listening carefully to what you said. In fact, James did say we're a MedComms agency. I thought he was going to miss that. So my story now is going to be slightly upset by that. But I find it very interesting. I mean, I've been running MedComms networking for 17 and a half years, sort of thing. When we started MedComms networking, MedComms wasn't really a term. It's developed into something, a business, a community. There are people who have an understanding, although we have largely argued over the years about quite what we mean by MedComms. But the marketplace is different now. You're all talking med affairs. That was very, very clear from what you all said, which you wouldn't have been talking 17 years ago. You've all set up, and in your different ways, and you've articulated it, but if you go to your websites, you'll see it as well. You've got clear positioning in a way that I don't think people would have done a few years ago. It would have been, we're a full service MedComms agency, we'll do anything. But you've got very clear, as I see it and as I understand it, positioning, albeit within and underneath that umbrella. So I'm intrigued by that. And I just think a few minutes may be spent from your points of view, listening to you talking a little bit, if we can bounce around and get all of you talking. How do you see it? You've grown up in over a number of years within networked agencies. You've gone out on your own. How has MedComms changed? How are you using the term MedComms, if you're using the term MedComms at all? Just give us a little bit of an insight into your use of language. I'm going to bounce around a bit, so I'm going to start with James.
Yeah, we positioned ourselves as a MedComms agency so that we're not a marketing agency, especially because we've gone in for on the channel, right? There's that constant confusion and frustration when we talk about on the channel to Med Affairs teams. They go, that's marketing, that's Netflix, that's Amazon, that's not what we do. So by being on the channel native MedComms, we put ourselves into that Med Affairs bucket without being fully in there. We try and position ourselves as like the marketing end of medical and the medical end of marketing. We work with both, but we don't do PR and we don't do pubs. So on that spectrum, we're in that more marketing end. But, you know, that's like 5 sentences. MedComms tries to capture that in one word for me.
Okay, and you're happy that MedComms still captures that?
Yeah, I think so, broadly. I don't know if it's more confusing for a US audience. You know, US seem to speak slightly differently about what they think MedComms is. But certainly in Europe, I think that gives enough of a, yeah, I think these are probably the right people to talk to for them to then continue the conversation with us. It doesn't put us out of the conversation, nothing else.
Okay. And do your clients talk in terms of, we want a MedComms agency, and therefore we look at that group of agencies, or do they have a different language at the client?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay.
It's like, you know, we usually have already started the conversation. You know, we're yet to really do a pitch or an RFP, luckily. So we're not really going in for that. You know, I need a MedComms agency, get me 6 agencies to pitch. Yeah. But I assume that will come at some point.
Okay. I mean, shout out to the audience. It would be great to have some opinion coming in from the audience about all this as well. AC, what's the same question to you, basically?
So I think ours probably reflects the way that medical affairs has changed its role within, you know, the mix within pharma companies. So, and I think this has been reflected or driven by MAPS to an extent. There's been a lot of talk for a long time about medical affairs becoming a strategic partner to the rest of the business. So, you know, historically commercially driven, commercially led, with medical being like a sort of a support function. And certainly over the last 10 years, with a lot of the compliance issues and challenges and sort of shift to power within medical and budget to medical. So we've seen, I think that it's MedComms, to James's point, sort of spoke to a broader spectrum. And then, you know, we in the olden days, you used to be able to work with medical and commercial clients on a launch. And but then there was a point sort of, you know, 10, maybe 15 years ago, where there was a bit of a separation of church and state. So you would either work with commercial, you would either work with medical. And that has changed to a degree, I think, as companies are seeing the fact that actually, in order to be truly effective, you need to have a cross-functional mindset. So it actually is limited, and, you know, limiting your ability to support the customer and the patient, the HCPs, you know, whoever you're working with, if you have this separation. So that from an agency perspective is not as marked. So I think for you know, all of us within the agency side of things, you're actually reflecting really where the customer is, as you know. So our clients generally, you know, the kind of work we do, which is very scientifically driven, you're either working with the medical teams in that regard, or you're working with commercial, but being the scientific brain, you know, the strategy, the scientific strategy behind it. I think when we were looking at positioning, and and I think it is really important. This is the one thing everybody said to me, and I spoke to tons of people who've set up their own agencies and been through this journey, and they were all really clear about the need to have that distinct positioning, different too. So that was something that was important to get that right, and because there is a temptation to kind of be a bit of a jack of all trades, like where we do everything, like we can do all these things, but actually to be clear about what you're about and why. And for us, MedComms was a bit too limiting, because we're doing a lot of strategy work. So, and I think that happens a lot, when you're working with medical affairs leads anyway, a lot of the planning. And then for us, it was the patient engagement piece. And, there's another conversation about, how you describe patient partnership, patient engagement, patient advocacy, but patient engagement is sort of the most recognized of those. So that's, for us, it was medical and patient engagement integrated. That made more sense than MedComms, which felt too limiting for us.
Okay. And come on then, Elena, basically same question.
Yeah, so I think it depends where you've come from in your career as well. I was a classically trained medical affairs medical writer, so that's where I guess I feel most comfortable, where Liz feels most comfortable. That said, because we're a small agency and we've had to be flexible as a startup, where we've been working with smaller pharma, they class us as integrated medical communications, which can sometimes mean we do a little bit of marketing medical crossover if a company has got a medical marketing director who's a bit of a hybrid role. So we've really had to flex with ours. That said, when we started, we very much positioned ourselves as a medical affairs strategy, because exactly as Anne Clare said, the MedComms name, the word, can be a little bit confused, I think, sometimes. And we did really want to go down a medical affairs route. So yeah, that doesn't mean we don't work with other departments, exactly as James and AC said. It's about being a kind of you position yourself to break down silos and work cross-functionally with your clients.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've all been through this. A lot of the business that you guys will be bringing in is based on your individual relationships with people, which is probably built around conversations where you can talk about. But it does start from where you position yourself, and as the business develops and gets a little bit older, it's more about people seeing you and going, "That's the sort of operation we want to work with." Yeah, it's less about the person that you've known for the last 5 years saying, "Yes, we'll work with you now." So, Elena, I'm intrigued. I don't want to put words in your mouth here. So your positioning has been quite strong in terms of majority women-owned, women's health, and if I can say this, correct me if I'm wrong, but certainly from where I sit, very much you've gone down the sustainability, B Corp route, all that sort of governance, etc., etc. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that, because again, I'm going to be a bit flippant and say, when I set up my MedComms agency, God knows how many years ago, all I worried about was getting some work in, getting it done, deliver it on budget, on time, and get out. And I was still working 24/7. But doing business today is rather more complicated. You are having to fit in with sustainability policies from clients. There's a whole massive amount of work around that, which I find a bit bewildering. So, but I know that you fully embrace this and B Corp and so on. In not too much detail, because we can Google it, but just give us a flavor of that aspect and how you treated it and how it's impacted on your ability to get up and running with your business so that you can deliver a project. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So when I started in MedComms 20 years ago, ESG wasn't really a thing. It wasn't something that I really
let's
knew
just
about.
Define ESG. Sorry, let's define the words. Okay.
Well, it started as corporate social responsibility, and it's kind of matured into environmental, social, and governance. So there was a concept of the triple bottom line. So that was a move to look at running a business beyond profit. So profit, people, planet. It's all kind of part of the same ESG wrapper. But like I said, when I started in MedComms, I wasn't really aware. I'd not worked in a business before. I was concentrating on getting a job. I wanted to buy a house. That's what I was sort of focused on. And as you go through your career and you are lucky enough to work with some really talented people in business, I have kind of gradually taken away from the businesses that I've worked on pieces of ethos or philosophy that I want to bring into my business. And as soon as I landed on the ESG, the B Corp, it struck a chord with me. I don't want to be here just to grow the business and exit. Having a social impact, being gentle on the environment is also equally as important to me. And perhaps I'm kind of that. I'm not alone, I think, in thinking that purposeful business side of things is really important. I don't want to just kind of come to work, do my work and go home. I want to feel like I've had a meaningful impact. So when Liz and I decided to set up the business, that was very clear to us that we wanted to go down that route. And B Corp has been fantastic for us. It's a super framework for setting up a good business, and especially when you're small, it's been a very helpful guide, scaffold to build a business around.
Okay, but it's clear from listening to you, this is a passion of yours, and you wanted to go that route. James, if I can bring you in, just out of interest, how does it balance out in terms of what the clients expect you to do these days, which is quite a lot, isn't it? You may be driven by the passion to do it that way, but there's also another driving force, which is the clients are going, you're going to have to do something like this. So how does that balance itself out? And what have you done? And are you doing things like B Corp and those sorts of programs, or what?
I think there is and there will be a push from clients, but like Elena is ahead of that curve, right? Getting it done now is probably a good thing before you have to do it. And that's very much like where I'm trying to be. When I started, I downloaded the big B Corp checklist. And at the time, it was just myself. And I was like, well, there's no diversity in my team.
Right.
And, but we're doing our best. And, we've improved on that. And we've taken, a lot of opinions on like using refurb laptops and all these kind of like, there's a lot of easy things to do, which have come from that framework. I think getting the certification and getting like a stamp that says you do that has got great value, because it just immediately carries, oh, that you've done a bunch of stuff. You don't need to explain it. B Corp's becoming well known enough, and EcoVadis as well, that you're like, I've done that. Great. And there will be a point, I don't think we're there yet, but there will be a point where you have to have it to work with pretty much any pharma company. So everyone will have that bit of paper. And then maybe the barriers for entry get harder. So it makes it even more better to do that.
Because it's quite onerous, isn't it? And you've already mentioned B Corp, you've mentioned EcoVadis. There are, I mean, I know we're simplifying this conversation, but there are different pharma clients out there doing different things and having different approaches. And if you happen to work with, I don't know, 3 or 4 different clients who happen to take different approaches, the workload at your end, multiplies up, sort of thing. I mean, AC, I mean, same thing, but 6 months in AC, I mean, how much of your time have you spent, doing all this stuff you have to do in order to do business with somebody, as opposed to getting on with some project work? And how overwhelming and expensive is that?
It's significant. So I think we decided to bring on board sort of a CFO, which is a big title considering that we're not a large outfit. But Chris Stratton, who'd previously worked was CFO of GCC back in the day when I joined. So a lot of people on this call will know him, very, very experienced, and he carries that. And I think that was a decision we took so that Dawn and I are not involved in the day-to-day, because there's a lot of that, and everything from the MSAs to the, that's the way we've structured the businesses, to actually have that sort of support immediately. And we've signed up because of client discussions to EcoVadis. And Elena and I spoke probably 9 months ago, longer, when I was looking at doing it. And she was very gracious, talking me through B Corp, and with Liz as well, all the things that are involved. And it is a significant, it's hugely impressive that that these guys have done it to, at the point that they had, and sort of really set the standard. And with everything so our kind of investment, and I think with all of this, you know, James was talking at MAPS, we've been involved in his MAP, Elena, you know, similarly with you know, his MAP and other meetings. As a small business, you also have to decide how much pro bono time or how much reinvestment time you're putting yourself back into sort of improving the industry as a whole. And our focus is within the patient engagement and, you know, sort of really trying to help build the evidence base for involving patients within medical affairs. It wasn't within the sustainability piece. Now we can make the decisions we make sort of ad hoc day to day with an eye to the B Corp, the same forms that James downloaded to have a look at, and the guidance that we'd received. But we recognise that we're going to need to do it. So we've signed up for EcoVadis and are going through that process.
Okay, and as and as you get a little bit bigger, I mean, it's one thing when there's 2 or 3 of you, but I mean, James, you're now a dozen or something like that, aren't you? I mean,
Right, yeah.
again, how do you just talk us a little bit about? I mean, people, if they're thinking about setting up a business, need to think a little bit about this. You know, it's all very well on day one, you make your own decisions, but quite quickly you have a group of people around you. Just talk us through a little bit your experience recruiting people. Am I right? It's about a dozen people, isn't it? Talk us through that sort of, you know, and what changes as the agency, which it now is starting to form.
Well, I mean, we were lucky. The first 9 people were all people we knew. So that had, you know, those people came with a degree of trust and understanding and buying in. Employee number 10 was someone we didn't know who came through a recruiter, and she's been great. So we are, you know, growing quickly, and that does bring different opinions and different ways of working. But like, most people are coming from bigger agencies, obviously. So like the team say to me, like, oh, I was going to post something on LinkedIn. I'm like, okay. Well, do you want to read it?
Why are you asking me?
No. Why would I read it? Post it. It doesn't need to go through 4 layers of approval. Just get on with it. Which has become a bit of a mantra for us on pretty much anything, is we just say, well, just get on, you know. It's actually easy to just do that. Yeah, you know, I'm well aware that as we approach 40 or more people, it's going to get much harder, and we're going to have more formalization. But the advantage of being small is not having that. So we need to take advantage of the fact that we don't have to have 4 layers of approval for stuff, because it gets work done faster.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because if you've got experienced people, I think you trust them that they've got the knowledge to hit the ground running. So we made a conscious decision as a remote agency. We weren't set up to take on junior writers. We have very experienced writers that's value to our clients as well. But it does mean, like James says, we've got a very we do trust our staff to know what they're doing, to know what their job is, and to be able to post on social media without running it past me.
Again, I'm going to say this. I hope I can speak for all of us, but push back if you don't want me to say it quite like this. You know, one of the great things about MedComms, possibly more so now than ever, is the wide variety of approaches and agency sizes and whatever. There's a whole gambit of it. And by definition, we're talking today, you're all small business owners and you've come out of large networked agencies, and we're not going to turn this into a knocking the networked agency type environment, because I know you don't want to, I don't want to, horses for courses and all the rest of it. However, it is very different. And I just wonder whether we can talk in general terms a little bit around what the pros and cons are, what made you, I suppose I'm getting at, what drove you to leave the large networked agency and set up on your own, there might be a number of ways of approaching that. But, you know, there's much more ability to be agile and flexible and so on and so forth. But there are also some downsides. So I don't know, Elena, do you want to sort of kick off and just say a little bit about, you know, how you see the landscape and, you know, and what the advantages are of doing what you're doing as opposed to being within the large networked agency type of environment?
Yeah, so my first job in MedComms was a really small MedComms agency of 10 people. My second agency was medium size, and then I went to a very large networked agency and kind of back again. So I've done the lot. I've done small, medium, large, and I cut my teeth in the large networked agencies as well. Hugely experienced. So I don't regret any of my time in any of my MedComms positions. That said, as you go through your career, you do tend to want to still be challenged. And I felt, just from my personal perspective, in the networked agencies, I wasn't really able to do what I wanted to do. And I was getting to the stage where I was kind of hitting some kind of walls in terms of where I wanted to go or what interested me. For me, that meant I felt I needed to take myself out of the agency employee world and start my own thing. There's going to be so many different drivers. For other people, it might be more flexibility. It might be just autonomy. And I would say probably autonomy was my driving force, particularly on the pro bono work. I'd always really wanted to do some of my MedComms work pro bono. I don't see why you can't. There's enough margin in MedComms to enable that to happen. Of course, you still have to have the paying clients. It needs to be a functional, profitable business. But I just didn't find that that passion in other directors or in other owners or groups of boards. So that was my driving force.
But also, am I right? I mean, you are a virtual agency, effectively, aren't you? Are you intending to remain a virtual agency? Do you see, Yes, it's a simple answer to the question. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm not going to say never, because depending on who we end up taking on, people actually may want a base, an established somewhere to go. But for now, it's just working brilliantly for us, and it works for the type of people at the stage of life that they are, to have flexibility and the remote model.
Okay. AC, go on, pick it up from your point of view. You were part of some very large organisations.
Yeah, too. And I absolutely loved it. I had no issue whatsoever. I thought that, within a big agency, you have tons of opportunity and you still work within your team. So, because of the kind of work we do, it's not like you're just a small cog in a big faceless organization. So in both the groups I was part of, it was, really positive, was able to build, teams. I was given, there's a lot of opportunities are offered. So, I was always hold it up that, in those environments, it was big enough to promote me while I was pregnant and to support me into, increasingly senior moves and be, have a hand in shaping what that looked like. But in, the first move to second agency was around just testing myself, because having done it once within a big agency, could I do it again? And this move this time is, could I do it not within the big, the sort of safety net of, the choice was to go back to another big agency. Last year, that was the choice I had, or set up. And I think that's the thing where, there's a lot of advantages in the big network agencies from the point of view, of progression. It's very structured. You can see, you get a lot of support. If you have, there's a difficulty, there's going to be 10 people you could call up potentially. If you built your network, if you spent time through that time building up and growing your network, there's people you're going to be able to go to and get support for. But I think the advantage of being at the stage, I am now, is that I still have that network, even though I am outside of the, in fact, I was able to call up Elena and, I'm sure I could call up James and ask a question, that is the thing I would say, is that actually because there's been so much fragmentation and there has been huge shift within, we've all seen it, we know that within the sort of the large agencies, there's been a lot of shifts, people have moved around. There's still is that core of all these people who know each other and are prepared to support each other. So I think that I've found, particularly there's a lot of superb freelance consultants, who are out there as partners, the agencies. So, our branding, for example, was somebody who I knew had been previously in one of the agencies. They sparked into life. They came and they supported us in doing our branding. So you were able to kind of almost pull on the same level of expertise, friendship networks that you have, because a lot of other people have also become independent and, gone out and done it on their own. So I think that that is one of the things I would say to anyone, you know, if you're not as long in the tooth, but you're within an agency and you're in a big agency, just the networks you build there will set you up for life, you know. So so I think for another one of the reasons for me is that you end up getting promoted out of the stuff you enjoy and you're good at. So you become more and more senior. And what can happen is, rather than being client facing, you spend a lot of your time wondering what's going on up above and trying to manage, you know, sort of these things. And so for me, I always really enjoyed the client stuff. I always really enjoyed building a team, getting involved in the client work, the innovation piece, looking at, you know, how, you know, spending a lot of time looking externally, being curious about what's going on, and then how do we apply that to what we're doing. And in very senior roles in the big agencies, you're spending a lot of time on forecasting and, you know, business operations, which some people are, it's incredibly important thing to do. And it then enables many other people to, you know, do the great work that they do. So it's a really important thing and great opportunities for people, but just that wasn't for me when I had the opportunity to set up.
A simple, blunt question: are you anticipating building a very large team over the coming years in the way that you have done before?
I would
see
like
yourself as a big agency in the making?
Yeah, it depends what you mean by big, and we had an initial conversation about this, but so no numbers, but yes, I wanted an agency. So you were talking to Elena before about virtual, so we're relatively virtual at the moment, although Lomon and I are close to each other, so we see each other regularly. I would be looking to build a physical agency, you know, if we get enough people in the Northwest, and yeah, I love that. I love the face-to-face, and I love being part of a big agency, you know, big team.
Okay. James, to take a slightly different tack on the same sort of basic question, have you had challenges with the clients in terms of getting a business started? By definition, you're starting at a small stage as well. But how interested or not are the pharma clients? Again, we're being a bit simplistic here in terms of working with the small boutique niche, maybe startup agency, as opposed to the network. I mean, I would say from where I've sat over the last 17 years, there's been a few pendulum swings, and sometimes pharma's very definitely gone, we want big networked agencies, but some individuals go, no, we want the boutique, and all the rest of it. So just again, a little bit of a flavour from your point of view of what challenges, if any, you've had from that point of view.
So we started with a blank slate. You know, we had 0 clients and we had to go out and find them. And, you know, the old adage of people by people is, you know, always true. We went out and met everybody we could. And, you know, that eventual first client wasn't, you know, as I've said, it wasn't going through an RFP. It was meeting somebody who had a need. And we did a 5-slide deck for them. It was a tiny little project, but it was really strategic, and Jess did a really good job of it. And they went, oh, maybe you're someone I can work with going forward. So there hasn't actually been a huge pushback to us being small, because we are bringing something unique, and usually it's someone within that organization going, I want to work with these people. Even the big pharma, where they've got one big network in place and they're supposed to only use them, people we know come to us and go, well, you know, you do something that they can't do, we'll get you in on a one-time project agreement and you can do a project for us. So there is.
Having said that, let's be honest about it. There are lots of situations in which procurement, you know, dictates what can and can't happen, and you know, so how much of it is luck? Can I put it that way? As in finding those sort of you know, opportunities where you're allowed to sort of fit in here. I guess the simple answer is there is an element of luck and relationships, and
you've just got to keep working at it. Yeah, I don't think it's luck as much as just finding the right people by speaking to everybody you possibly can. And going to every
you make your own luck.
I can probably speak for everyone that we've had to do a lot of networking and really you know, use our there's strategic partnerships that you can draw on. There's speaking events. There are your existing connections. There are kind of just reach outs that you don't know whether anything's going to come of it, but it's got to be a mix. It's got to be a sustained mix, and you've got to do a lot of it.
Yeah. I think
I don't know whether. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, because Anne Clare was talking about building your network. And like one of the things compared with working in a big network agency that I found was in a big network agency, each team actually felt quite competitive to the other team because you've got a separate P&L and you had a lot of like, oh no, I can't share my client with you, it's my client. And there's like internal competition. A weird thing I've found of not being in a big network agency is that you will just, and Claire said it, you just talk to other agencies and they'll help you.
Yeah.
And like, and not people I've known before. There's lots of agencies who I've met and been like, well, you're small as well, you know, I'll give you a bit of help because it's like, it's no skin, it's just a bit of time. And there's a much more collaborative network to help you make introductions. And it's really easy to go, I met someone at this event and I met someone at that event and they should probably talk to each other. So you send an email and someone comes with that later. So.
And I mean, are you actually know the answer to this question. Are you a member of any little networks of agencies that are, you know, boutique agencies or whatever? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so there's
for anybody that's looking at us, I mean, there's some people who will be watching this thinking, you know, so you might want to throw a name or two out of the sort of little networks that are going. I think they're sorry,
the
I'm
Health
leading you
House
in
is a
the
great
direction.
network.
Which one? Say again.
The Health House.
Yeah, so that's what I assumed we could sort of mention them as a. So the idea is you've got a network of sort of boutique sort of agencies, sort of collaborating and so on. So people might be interested in that. Okay. The point is, there's a lot of collaboration going on.
I mean, there's also it's not just a health network either. There are general agency networks like Agency Nomics, Agency Collective, and they all do similar things. They're all able to give you agency partnerships, and experience outside the industry is also really useful, I found. So yeah, there's lots of peer communities around that you can draw on.
And I'm not being funny, but you do talk a lot on LinkedIn, Elena, about being part of those sorts of different sorts of groups and so on. I mean, I that's one of the messages I get from just browsing around, that you do actively go out, network and around those different groups and so on, and talk about it and see the benefits. Yeah. AC again, similar. Well, to you actually. Sorry, I've got there's a few questions coming in. I don't think. I wanted to ask a question, but it's gone out of my mind, so I'll forget about it for the moment. What AC, and we're going to run out of time. You've been going 6 months, AC. Okay, so what was the biggest surprise? Let's have a blunt, simple question. Okay, you've started a new business. It's all okay. It's a bit scary, but we're full of hope. Have you got a sort of what was the sort of surprises that you didn't expect starting a new business?
The biggest surprise was that the clients have not, to James's point a little bit earlier, they've not minded that we're new. So, and the fact is that all of us have got an inordinate amount of experience, right? So we're not coming as new, right? But still, Amica is a new name and we've had to establish a brand and all that kind of stuff. Clients haven't been bothered. And these are, you know, all of our clients have known at least one of us. And then, so that's the biggest surprise. How incredibly supportive everybody has been. Like previous employers have been incredibly supportive, so that's been another thing that I've has really surprised me. It's not surprised me, it's just been ridiculously good fun. I thought it is incredibly hard, but when you're doing it for yourself, it's different.
But you're running your own business now. I mean, I don't know. Let's be a bit flippant about it. But I can remember when my computers all blew up, and I had to sort that out myself, sort of thing. It's things like that which caught me out more than how do I deliver a project or it was that
but
sort of stuff.
But honestly, when you're in a team, in an agency, it's the same thing. Like you still feel as accountable and as responsible, and so for us,
didn't you send an email to somebody and they
but we set up, and I think again Elena might have given us this nod when we first set up, but we have already set up, and we very deliberately did this when we began. We have really robust and a great IT partner and legal partner and all of that. Like we have as many services and support and structure and infrastructure as a large agency. There's nothing I've been able to do or not been able to do here that I was able to call on in a previous company. So I honestly that's been
same.
We set out with that at the beginning, because you cannot deal with the clients we deal with without those infrastructures in place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to state the obvious, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I set up my business, there was none of that. You know, there really wasn't. So the working environment has changed now. So, you know, like you set up your specialist MedComms type agency, someone else has set up a special HR or specialist.
Exactly.
It's a completely different working sort of environment, isn't it? Sorry, James, I cut across you.
Well, I was just going to say, like, we haven't done that. Like, I'm the bookkeeper and the IT team and the HR team.
Oh, right,
and like in time, we'll get better support for this. Like, we've got a good lawyer and a good accountant, but everything else I'm picking up that. But in time, we'll get people to help.
But it's nice wearing the hats. I've really enjoyed wearing all the hats, and I'm a great one. I guess if we're talking about, you know, the type of person, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're able to juggle plates and spin a lot of plates, and you can kind of put your, you know, you can do something well in most things, that's where I would say my skills as an entrepreneur have been, just being able to do lots of different things, wear lots of the hats.
Yeah.
And there's, but it comes with an acceptance that there's you take the knocks as well as the you know, I love it, yeah, but I completely acknowledge that I've been in a complete mess at times, and I've just sort of handled that. And I think you sort of got to accept that as you go into this, you know, setting up your own business. Otherwise, you are going to get in a mess quite quickly, sort of thing. But the freedom's quite good. Okay, look, we've run out of time, which is very frustrating. Okay, look, I am going to draw the line there. I think we should. Part of the point of these webinars is to encourage people to talk to each other, and we're all talking about how important it is to talk to each other. So I know I can talk for you and say anyone watching this either today or later on the recording can reach out to you. LinkedIn is an easy way of doing it. Yeah, I think MedComms is an exciting place at the moment. We're all saying the same thing. It is exciting. There's lots of opportunity, but it is an interesting marketplace, and it's been quite disrupted recently. I think you know, anyone who's feeling entrepreneurial, I think there are challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunity, and it's great to know that there's people around who can talk to each other and support each other, and so on and so forth. So please, everyone, get in touch with each other. If anyone's interested in what we're doing, medcommsnetworking.com, obviously, I'm happy to help anytime I can. But I think on that note, don't all run away, those of you who are still here, because we can carry on talking for a little bit. But in terms of the recording, I'm going to suggest we stop it there and say goodbye. If everyone gives a little wave, and happy MedComms Day. Bye bye.